Hello and welcome to the second interview of Psych Soc O'Clock. Today I'm here with Dr. Heather Clealand Woods, who is a lecturer at the University of Glasgow, and her PhD researcher, Holly Scott, who are working on the #SleepyTeens project, researching sleep in adolescents, particularly concerning the use of social media and its relationship to sleep. So thank you very much for coming.
Oh, it's our pleasure. Thanks for asking us.
We're going to start with, apart from counting sheep, how do you get to sleep?
So what I do, I have to say it's not really a problem. It's not really a problem for me. I am a good sleeper. But what I actually do is if I kind of find I've got that busy head and I find it difficult to switch off, which actually is more of a problem for me waking up in the middle of the night if I think, I need to do this or I've got something in my mind, is what I actually do the clenching. So I clench and unclench my hands and my feet, kind of scrunch up and release to try and kind of relax a little bit.
Oh, that's
that
really
muscle
interesting.
Relaxation. But I also do the thought blocking thing, which is actually part of CBT for insomnia. And I'll try and keep my eyes open, which is when you're trying to stay awake is very different from when you're trying to go to sleep. So I'll try and keep my eyes open and then I get heavy eyelids and I'll thought block, which is just repeatedly in my head saying the, and that's actually quite effective.
I know lots of people try and just do the mental thing rather than the muscle physical thing, but that's a really good idea.
It's just a kind of way of realising that actually you are lying quite tense. So if you can just try and kind of relax and realise and relax your muscles a little bit, it can help.
What about you, Holly? Do you have any tricks?
Yeah, I sometimes do that. I really like sort of guided relaxation or guided visualisation, sort of short recordings that you can get on podcasts and things that involve that clenching and, like you say, you realise you're actually lying quite tense and it helps relax you. Or sometimes I do, if I've got that busy mind thinking, I've got to do this tomorrow, I've got to do that, I do sometimes listen to podcasts lying in bed. So I have a whole list of podcasts that I've only heard the first 10 minutes of because they actually work quite well and then I fall asleep.
Do you choose ones with someone with a really nice, relaxing voice?
Yes.
Yeah.
I sometimes listen to audiobooks that are really quite dull and a really boring, lulling voice, and it's perfect.
I try and do this thing where I go through the alphabet in my head, and each night I'll do a different list for each letter. So sometimes it's animals, and so I'll try and come up with 4 animals that start with A, and then I'll move to B.
And do you
then
find
C.
that relaxing?
Yeah, I find it because it's kind of, it focuses me so that I can't think about things going on in my day, but I've never made it to the end of the alphabet. So it's
What
not too
letter
difficult.
do you normally get to?
I mean, sometimes I do it one at a time. I've got to X and that's pretty difficult. And
Wow.
Q can be quite hard. And then I do places. But I think there's one place in China, it's called Chi or something. It's with an XI. That's the only X I've found so far.
See, that would be far too stimulating for me. I'd be like, Q. Hang on, I need to go up and
Yeah,
find
that
it. That would not be relaxing and de-arousing for me at all. It has to be something very neutral. That's why the word the, it doesn't mean anything. It's just a sound. And so that's why I kind of find it quite good. That's really interesting that we've all got different strategies.
Yeah, and none of them are counting sheep.
And none of them are. But counting sheep is pretty much the same thing. It's like a kind of neutral thing, boring task that doesn't really mean anything. But then I get frustrated because I lose count.
Yeah,
So
me
then I'm
too.
like, I need to start this again. Right. Which again is another thinking. So that's why. So it's really interesting.
So with all of the students having exams coming up, we thought we would talk about how important having a good sleep schedule is for retaining all of the hard revision that hopefully everyone is doing and all of the learning they're doing in classes. So what kind of thing do you think is most important for teenagers or like young adult students who are studying to do with their sleep at the moment?
I think firstly what I would think is that you have to kind of respect your sleep time. I think that's something, and a lot of what I will say today will be do as I say, don't do as I do, because we all have pressures of revision and juggling uni life with a social life and work life, and we totally respect that, that's happening with all of us. We're trying to keep all the plates spinning. But I think if we're at this point in semester where coursework's been submitted, we're starting to look towards the end of teaching and the start of the exam periods, maybe this is a time to reflect back and think, what's worked well for me this semester? And what what's maybe not working quite so well.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say if sleep is the thing that's being sacrificed, that's something that generally can't be maintained for a length of time, because we know that sleep is involved in your immunity.
Mm-hmm.
So your physical health, your mental health. If you aren't getting enough sleep, you're more likely to be anxious, you're more likely to feel, it'll affect your mood. And it'll affect your performance, because we know that sleep's related to your learning
Mm-hmm.
and to memory and all those connections in the brain being made, and that's what learning is.
Mm-hmm.
It's not some magical power, it's actual connections being made in the brain. And the more you use those connections, the more, the stronger they'll be. So I would say maybe start to think about a schedule or a plan, not just for I will study this module by this time and then that module. I think it's actually about planning the next few weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And having that point of saying, and at that point it's done and I'm going to enjoy myself, I'm going to have a lovely Christmas. But when I say schedule, not just schedule a revision, but actually schedule, okay, well, if I do this and I do that, and these are the times, I'm also going to have my gym time, I'm going to have my exercise time, I'm going to have my time to see if I can get out. And yes, we are in Glasgow, and yes, it's November and there's not much light, but light is really important.
Mm-hmm.
Light is the biggest re-entrainer we have, the biggest external cue we have for entraining our sleep schedule. So trying to get a little bit of natural light every day would be good.
Mm-hmm.
Make sure you have the exercise time, because we know exercise is really important. If you're just sitting at a desk for 8 hours a day and you're not expending that energy, then sleep might be affected. So I think just having a schedule and thinking about what are all the things that I want to do and how am I going to fit all of them in. There might be some things that have to be sacrificed.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe this is the time that maybe social life is not going to be incredibly busy.
Yeah.
There's going to be a time that it will be incredibly busy, and it should be. But that doesn't mean that you're like, I can't therefore go out for the next month, because that's not going to help either.
Are there any patterns that you notice lots of students seem to pick up to do like around this time of year? Or is it very common for students to, for example, stay really late in the library and then suffer as a result?
I noticed that as a student, because I'm University of Glasgow through and through, so I've done this course as a level 1 right up, and now still here doing my PhD. And I did notice that I've always been quite fussy about my sleep and all the things Heather's talking about protecting your sleep time, making sure you're getting your regular meals, some exercise. Yeah. And I think that's really important what you're saying about prioritising all of that and building that into your plan, because I was aware of other peers in my year group who would stay late in the library, and who would spend that last night before the exam not getting much sleep because they're revising.
Yeah.
Whereas I think it's so important, like Heather says, plan ahead and have a time where you say, okay, I've done my learning now, and now the priority is I need to be well rested for tomorrow, I need to get up and have my breakfast, I need to be calm. And I would always do that, and just decided that my studying has to be finished by the night before at a reasonable time. I'm then going to relax, have a bath, whatever it is that works for you, have a good night's sleep, have your breakfast, come in. I would sit somewhere else with my headphones in, ignoring everyone, doing the last minute studying, because I would say no, studying has to be done by the night before so I can consolidate those new memories overnight. And I know that what I'm going to gain from staying up and cramming all night, I can gain more from getting a good night's sleep, and I'm going to perform better.
Yeah. How much of your research have you looked at, obviously not the effects of cramming, but how sleep can improve retention of memories and learning and that kind of thing?
That's not our specific research area, but working generally in the sleep, we are aware there is research out there that not only looks at the importance of sleep generally in memory, but has also looked at the kind of the valence of stimuli, so the valence of material and what's being retained and how sleep deprivation or sleep restriction impacts that. So if you're sleep restricted, you're actually less likely to remember. It's not more negative stuff that you remember, but it's actually less positive stuff. Okay, and so that's been linked to things like onset of depression and things like that. And we know that if you are if you have insomnia diagnosis, you're twice as likely to develop depression, or is it 3 times as likely? You're more likely to develop depression. And that was work done by Chiara Baglioni. If MD's interested in it, she's in the Freiburg group. So we know all these things, but also there's some work that's come out that actually shows it's not just sleep as a whole, because as we know, it's not just you go to sleep, you stay asleep and you come out of sleep, that you have cycles of sleep and you have sleep stages. So you have REM sleep, which is associated with your dreaming. And that's where you see the kind of rapid eye movement but lose muscle tone, so you're not up acting out your dreams. But you also have these non-REM stages in stage 1 and stage 2. And when you actually look at a sleep profile, it doesn't just, the cycles don't all look the same, but as the night goes on, the amount of REM sleep you get. And that's really important when you think about everybody who's waking up to alarm clocks.
Yeah.
And you're cutting that. Some research out there that says stage 2, particularly within the last quarter of sleep, is really important for memory consolidation.
Oh, okay.
So I think that from that, it actually comes out of it. It's, again, we know sleep is really important, but not just, so I've had X amount and I know that I can work on 4 hours of sleep. I think it's actually about trying now to get into a pattern of like how much, if I can get in a routine that I'm not paying a sleep debt off at the weekend, if I can get into a routine, I know that generally if I go to bed at, say, 10 o'clock and I'm asleep by 10:30 and I get up at 7:30 and I'm actually waking up naturally a little bit before then, that seems to work for me. Okay? Yeah. So if you feel that you're going to bed later and later and it's harder and harder when that alarm goes off, you're not getting enough sleep. So it's about understanding that schedule. But it's also about your circadian rhythm as well. Because I'm a morning person.
Yeah,
I would much rather get up in the morning and get stuff done and could quite easily be in my bed for 10 o'clock. I'd be quite happy at that. I'm not a night owl. My husband is a night owl. And I'm now seeing that actually my oldest daughter's a night owl. Because I think my youngest is much more like me. But we've talked about this before, about how we kind of get into rhythms and we see different rhythms in our different people that we work with.
Yes. And even for me, like across the time from being a student and now doing my PhD, like that has completely changed for me. So it changes a lot with age. So when we're sort of older adolescents in 1920, I think we hit our sort of generally latest time where naturally our bodies want to fall asleep later and wake up later.
Okay.
Whereas now I'm finding that I'm starting to get a bit earlier and earlier, and actually for me it works in bed 9-10 o'clock, unapologetic, message my friends to say that is me, off to bed, not sorry. And then I'm up first thing in the morning and actually quite productive in the morning. So it's like Heather says, it's about finding what works for you and what works with your body clock.
It's difficult when we have to adjust. People of different ages all have different schedules, but all of society is set to one schedule, so it's really interesting. I remember there was one school near me which trying to start schools at 8 a.m. instead of 9 a.m.
Oh, wow.
to see how it affected the students. And lots of students, I think, remember they said that they actually quite liked it because they found they had to be more awake earlier and they found their days more productive. And then they managed to get their studying done a little bit earlier so they could go to bed earlier. But that might have just been the few students that I talked to.
That's really interesting because that would actually go against the start time.
Okay.
School start time research that says in adolescence what we should actually be doing is and a lot of this work comes from the States. It's been a little bit more challenging in the UK, but actually compared to the States, the UK school starts quite significantly later than in the US, where school can start kind of 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning. Yeah, exactly. And they have a real issue because obviously, for example, that a lot of adolescents in the States, they drive. You drive yourself to school. And so you can imagine you have a sleep-deprived adolescent getting behind the wheel of a car and they wrap themselves around a tree. So it is a real-life impact of trying to understand about sleep quality, sleep duration, and sleep scheduling, and how that changes over the developmental period to try and understand, well, when is the best time for us to have children travelling to school safely? How can we schedule the learning time, the teaching time effectively? How can we also schedule in the kind of extracurricular stuff, the other stuff that kids want to do? And what we're finding is also that social time, that social media time is really important as well, when they can actually have that social interaction. So that's another example of how you can think, what are the important things for me to do, and how do I give equal respect to each one of them that makes me, the best that I can be, perform the best I can be, feel the best I can be as well. Because if you don't feel great, then that's going to impact on a lot of things.
It's interesting because during revision time, I think lots of people sort of intellectually know, okay, I'm going to have to sacrifice my social time. But sometimes they make up for that or feel they're making up for it by going on social media rather than actually going out. And I know you guys have done a lot of research into how social media can affect and change sleep patterns. So maybe we can talk about that for a little bit.
Sure. Sure. So, Holly, do you want to kick off with that?
So we've been looking mostly at adolescents in our work and working with secondary schools in Scotland. So young people between about 11 and 18. And that's the time when we know sleep is really important. You're having to perform at school, you're developing so much physically and socially and mentally that getting enough sleep is really important. And a lot of young people at that age don't get the sleep that they need. And now, with the ability and expectation to be connected 24/7 on social media, and the ability to continue social interactions in bed in the middle of the night, that's a real extra barrier that young people are facing. And they're telling us in our research, where we sit down and speak to young people, a lot of them are saying, I'm not getting the sleep I need, I do feel tired at school, and part of that is I am struggling to disconnect from social media. It comes back to what you're saying about that, but that's a great way for people to connect. If you're not able to go out partying maybe during the exams, you can still get that connection and all those benefits socially from social media. So that's great, and I think it's those two together. The benefits of being connected to your friends and having that social support, but against if that's happening at midnight, 1, 2 in the morning, and you're feeling really tired, and that's impacting on your mood and your performance. It's about trying to get the balance between those two.
Yeah. No, I'd absolutely agree with that. And I wonder whether, and you can tell me here, I wonder whether do students still think about the way for me to study is to lock myself in my room on my own and just read the lecture notes and read the course textbook.
Yeah, lots and lots of students do that. Or even in the library, it's really great because there are sort of collective study zones, but then people do have the mentality that I need to go sit by myself, read and reread my notes, rewrite them out exactly as I've written them before, and that's the way I retain things. But especially for me, I find that actually talking to people about the topics is really, really helpful because firstly, if you don't understand something, then people can say, I'm not sure, I thought that it happened this way. Or if someone else doesn't understand something, you can try and teach them and talk through it. And that's actually one of the best ways to learn, is trying to teach other people, because you have to filter everything and summarise everything to see whether you really understand it.
Yeah, no, and I think that's really an important point, that is a point, it's a balance between those things. There is a point that you just actually, chat with your friends, no matter, if you don't know it, you don't know it. So there's getting that basic knowledge that you'll get from the lecture notes, that you'll get from the course textbook. But lectures, I know we all do, we put extra, we've talked about the videos, we've talked about like papers and blogs, and there's now such a vast array of resources out there that we are sharing with you, or guiding to it, be on Moodle or through Slack or whichever way that we're sharing materials. So we actually have that communication. So there is that point of, I need to sit down and read this and kind of get a grasp on it. And then there's the second layer of, right, what else is out there? How can I expand and show my research skills and expand all those skills that I'm being given this opportunity to demonstrate? But to do that on your own is quite limited. It's quite limiting. So if you can actually do it and say, exactly like you've said, within like a study group, and we've talked about setting that up for level 1 and level 2 have done that, which is great. And setting up those groups where you, exactly as you've just said, you can go, I'm not sure I'm getting a real grasp of this. And somebody says, I'm totally fine with that. Let's talk about that together. And then they say, well, that's funny because I'm not so good. And then you have that social connection that can actually develop your learning. So I think it's about moving beyond just with the lecture notes and rewriting them, because all you're doing is repeating the same information. But by growing that knowledge, some of that can be done on your own, but some of that can be done with social connections as well. But it's weighing up, as Holly said, that can be done in person in study groups and getting some space in the boy door or meeting in the library or whatever it is and sitting together round and just getting the notes out and going through it together. But actually some of that can be done in social media as well.
Yeah.
So if you have connection with friends and going, guys, I'm just not getting this, or guys, I've just totally nailed this, I'm really struggling with it, I've got it, then it's that positive feedback as well.
Yeah.
So it's about understanding that social media isn't just about the procrastination and the negativity and the self-comparison and the rumination, but actually it's about social connectedness and positive feedback and sharing ideas and developing knowledge, because that's what we do. We go and we'll maybe write something or we'll generate ideas on our own, and then, I mean, even Holly and I, we have a kind of Friday morning sessions that we get the whiteboard and we just start working through ideas and developing ideas, and
you
sometimes
get so
they're
much further in that hour or two than each of us sitting separately for an entire day.
But that wouldn't work if we hadn't done the basics first.
Mm-hmm.
And kind of gone away and had a thought and done the reading on our own and then brought ideas together. But they are so productive. So I would certainly recommend thinking about that. But then that has to be one of those things that you're thinking about and mapping out and planning and suggesting to other people, because if you're doing that in the pub at 11 o'clock at night, that's maybe not going to be as productive as, say, well, let's meet late afternoon and then go and treat yourselves to a glass of wine and a pizza.
I find for my revision, I make lists. So I break down, if I choose a topic, I'll first go through like the whole syllabus. I'll be like, I really like these topics, so I'm going to work on them. And then I've been using the learning outcomes to make flashcards for each learning outcome. And it makes it all so much less daunting than thinking, I've got to revise for psychology. I don't know where to start. There's
psychology,
so much.
this huge, great big field that there's so much I have to do. And funnily enough, I was talking to a student about this yesterday, and it was just that feeling of, how am I going to get through all of this? And we sat and I said, well, if I were you, what I would do is, and I said, look at the ILOs, so exactly what you're doing, and I would say, okay, these are the things that I like, and these are the things that I think I'm okay at. But this is all the stuff that I'm not so sure about, and I'm not. So how am I going to tackle that? And it's actually about doing that work on your own and thinking about it, and then going and speaking to this office hours. Go along and say, this is what I'm thinking about this. Am I on the right track? And then you'll get. And so it's about thinking about, well, getting organised and planning the stuff that you're pretty comfortable with. What's the scary stuff, and how you're actually going to. And then if you deal with one of those things, one after another, and think, this is how I'm going to deal with it. It's that positive feedback thing that you're getting, rather than just, I really hope all of this sticks. Because that can be daunting for everyone, having all that. Holly, who's doing a PhD, is nodding very enthusiastically.
Nodding vigorously. I know people can't hear that, but I'm nodding vigorously because we have this same issue. I was just saying this to a group of friends that are doing PhDs. We say, okay, right, I've got to go now. I've got to go and write a study. And you just think, how am I going to do that? Like you say, you've got to break it down so it's not so overwhelming, and mix in that all the individual hard work and all that prep, the basics that you've got to get done, but also a bit of social interaction for those sort of aha moments where you have to explain it to someone, they ask you questions, things click, and also you're looking after yourself because you're not just shut away for 8 hours a day in a box.
And it's that feedback, isn't it? It's like, if you get a good night's sleep and you're feeling good, then you can deal with stuff, and you can cope with stuff, and you're effective. And it's about, like, today I'm going to do this, 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 and this. And then you get that done, you get the positive feedback from that, and then that feeds into, actually, I'm going to bed, worked hard, things are okay, I'm on top of things, I've got my list written of what I'm doing tomorrow, and then it feeds back. I make it sound so simple, don't I? It's so easy. But then what you want to avoid is that going to bed and lying going, I've got all this stuff to do, I've got all this stuff to do, and then you're not getting a good night's sleep, and then it's the negative feedback. So that's why sleep, I think, is quite easily seen as something that's disposable, but again, it's just something that you have to protect, because it's so important in that positive feedback loop.
And as someone who's recently gone through sort of undergraduate, I guess postgraduate, and now PhD, how have you noticed your sleep pattern has changed, or what are things that you've learned from your experiences of going through the different stages of higher education?
I think going through psychology and learning about how we learn and how we make new memories, and learning more and more about sleep and into my PhD and getting to know the sleep research more, I definitely value my sleep more than I ever have. And I tell everyone about how important sleep is, to the point that I think they're bored of hearing about it now. All of my friends in jobs, all of the people I know doing PhDs, students, sleep affects everything. It affects, like Heather says, how you wake up in the morning feeling ready to tackle things, whereas if you haven't had enough sleep, I can identify with that. If I've had a really busy day and been cramming things in towards the night, then lay in bed thinking, I haven't got this done, I then wake up feeling really overwhelmed and not ready to tackle it. Whereas I've really learned and really try my best, don't always get it right, definitely not every night, try really hard to prioritise my sleep. And I'm really unapologetic about that and say that to my friends and say, no, I'm offline. And they'll sort of laugh at, going to bed at 9 o'clock. And I say, no, I'm not sorry. I want to get my sleep. And then I wake up in the morning feeling, okay, I'm ready to go. So I think the more I've learned about sleep, the more I prioritise it, and I really, really value my sleep and try to convert everyone else to value their sleep.
Yeah, no, absolutely, absolutely.
And like we're both saying, don't get it right every night.
No.
It's not like we're sort of being smug, perfect sleep habits at all.
No.
And I think that's part of, for students, in terms of planning this out, in terms of the sleep and all those aspects of self-care around meals and exercise and socialising. It's about planning and good intentions and trying to get it right, but also forgiving yourself when you don't get it right, and that's totally fine.
And I think that's relevant for students, but I think it's just relevant for people.
Yeah.
I think it's just relevant for people if you can just get a handle on those kind of things now when you're starting on your academic career and whatever, if it's academia or whatever career you embark on and following your degree, your time with us here, if we can help you get into those good skills and habits now, it's going to make life just a lot easier for you generally, to understand what works best for you. And I think that's just just one of the things that's just really important, and if you can get it right now, then it's going to help you.
As sort of to wrap up, as a top tip for students, how are we able to get our best quality sleep? Like, are there any particular tips, or I don't know, maybe mint tea before bed always helps me, or having really comfy cushions, or anything like that you'd recommend?
Oh, I think I've got so many. I think one of them, and I think actually what you've just said is like what works for you. I think what works for you. We know things like things that are really arousing, that are going to waken you up, that are going to be really exciting or really scary, or really, going to cause you, I need to get through this, I'm worried about it. Those are the things that are not going to help you sleep. So if you can get into a sort of bedtime routine that when it's time, just as you say, go offline and disengage, and respect that and go, do you know what, that's okay, I can pick this up in the morning. And I think it's okay to say, guys, I'll catch up with you, and I actually do say that. I say, do you know what, guys, I need to kind of go offline, I'll catch you in the morning, love you all, bye, it's all very friendly. It's just like being in a group and saying, I need to shut off, I'll see you later. And just sort of giving yourself a bit of time just to go, relax. Simple things as well as like caffeine. As someone who is a very heavy coffee drinker, but I can drink a few cups of coffee and it doesn't affect my sleep. But I know other people who really have to limit it.
Yes, I'm very strict. I can have 1 or 2 coffees before 12 noon, and if I have more than that, I know that I will lie awake in bed. So I'm really strict with that, because I know I'm going to lie in bed. That doesn't help with the busy head, and it impacts on sleep.
It's a stimulant.
You're more tired the next day, you want more coffee. So again, what works for you? If caffeine's an issue for you, think about that.
But also having caffeine, like I see a lot of people drinking these caffeinated, like Red Bull and things, Monster and energy drinks, that's the phrase I'm looking for, first thing in the morning and all the way through the day. So actually kind of thinking, what am I taking in, and how does that affect my body? If you are just living on sugar and caffeine, you're going to crash. So it's about just that little bit of self-care and thinking, because that won't just be for that moment, it feeds into the 24-hour day. I think the other thing is like, just give yourself a bit of a break.
Is there a particular, I know it's different for everyone, but when would you recommend trying to switch off and get rid of your devices? Like, is there a...
Oh, I think, as I say, there's variation. I would say if you can have ideally an hour before bed, I think if you can think about your day of if I could paint my perfect day, but paint my perfect day knowing that I've got to get certain things done. I'm sure that people's perfect days wouldn't necessarily be spending time in the library, but would be a mix of things. Then I would start from there. And I would think, so what would be my perfect afternoon? What would be my perfect dinner time? What would be my perfect evening? And if you think, actually, do you know what I would really like? I'd like just an hour or two. I'd like to watch a silly movie or a programme or catch up with friends, then do that. But then also build in that time of quiet time. And it does go back a little bit to what happens when we're children. When our parents are saying, okay, it's time, you have your meal, you have your bath, then it's, pyjamas on and it's all warm and it's all cosy and it's all starting to get a little bit quieter. If you can think of how that works for you, then I think that's a top tip.
Yeah, you can build that into your plan, like Heather says, when you're planning your day, this is when I'll do my study and this is when I'll meet my friends, and see that as part of your sleep routine.
Yeah.
See that if you're aiming for whatever works for you, if you're aiming for I'm keen to get 8 or 9 hours sleep, here's the times that's going to work for me, and as part of that, the hour before that, here's what I'm going to do. See that as part of your sleep and part of your learning, having that time to wind down, that's going to help you get a good night's sleep and wake up in the morning ready to go. Sleep's
not necessarily something that happens at night time, but actually when you think about it, it's part of your 24-hour cycle. When you think about it like that, that can be really helpful because it's built in there.
Yeah. And in waking up in the morning, is there anything that students can do so that they can try and feel a bit more invigorated?
I think especially this time of year, I find it really difficult waking up to the dark. And it is really dark in Glasgow in November. So if you can do something, because it's dark earlier, then maybe leave blinds a little bit open or something, so there is some natural light that's coming into the room. Or we have one of these lights, I'm not suggesting everybody gets them, but it's just another thing that actually our alarm actually is a natural, so you're waking up to light. Light is a big factor, so I would try and think about like that, because if you're waking up to the pitch dark, it's very, very difficult not just to turn over and go straight back to sleep because you think it's still night.
And that's a huge challenge for the December exams when it's so dark. But I would say that as well, really focus on light and get out for just a 15-minute, half-hour walk as soon as you can in the light. So whether that's going for a walk at 8 o'clock or 9 or 10 in the morning, try and get out and try and get some natural daylight. That's going to help set your body clock and then help you be tired and sleepy at bedtime.
And that's another social thing that you can do. You can actually say, right, who's in the library today, who's studying here, right, let's meet after lunch, maybe, or even at 3 o'clock, where you're going to naturally have that little circadian dip. And when everybody goes, oh, I really want a Snickers and a cup of coffee. Well, is that just me? But that when you're having and say, right, what we'll do is let's just meet outside and let's just go for a walk. Go and have a walk through Cleland Grove Park. It's right in our doorstep. And even in the autumn when it's a bit soggy, it is really pretty. So go and have a look about it. Go and see the university, maybe the bits that you haven't seen. And just if you do that, 20 minutes, half an hour, as Holly said, can be really helpful.
And that's not you slacking off from your studying. That is part of your learning. That is you taking a break, letting yourself digest it all, getting some fresh air, some light, some exercise, seeing your friends. That's all important. That's all part of what you're trying to achieve.
Well, now that you've said that, I think I'm going to go for a walk.
Lovely. Excellent.
Thank you so much, both of you, for coming.
Oh, that's been great. Thank you so much.
Thanks for inviting us.
Yeah, it was brilliant. And hopefully I'm going to try and use these things for my exams to make sure I'm nice and well rested.
That was excellent. No, that would be really good. And hopefully it'll be effective for everyone.
This interview was conducted by Amelia Hilton, Dr. Heather Clealand Woods, and Holly Scott in association with the Glasgow University Psychology Society. It was produced by Amelia Hilton and edited by Jack Harding. Special thanks to Jack Harding for the original music, and to the University of Glasgow School of Critical Studies for providing the recording facility.